Okay, so what's the difference between the two primary traumas that people know about? One is called shock trauma, okay, and the other one is called developmental trauma. Now, why does it matter for you to know about two different kinds of traumas? Well, we want to help you understand what it is that you may have gone through, okay, and then why you're feeling the symptoms that you're feeling. And then the next piece is what the best treatment is for you so that you can actually feel better and feel like yourself again. Or for the first time, learn what it means to feel like yourself. So, shock trauma usually refers to an incident where physically your body feels like it's in danger. So, it can be, being in a building that is under collapse. It could be, you're in a war zone, being physically beaten, being left alone, right? As a very, very young child or as a baby. So you feel like you're actually in danger. Developmental trauma is a trauma where your sense of identity, your sense of self, and the core of who you are feels threatened. So that happens more in situations of neglect. So kind of, you could be in a situation where you're not physically in danger, but if there's emotional abuse or if there's, right, like being really badly hurt or being completely unseen, unheard, ignored for your existence on a developmental level, meaning on developing yourself as a being on this planet, that's a trauma in itself. So developmental trauma usually is something that's more ongoing. It isn't like a one-time thing, right? It isn't like a one-time shock. It's like a little droplets of water, one piece at a time. Now you can have a shock trauma and a developmental trauma happen at the same time. So, for example, if you're being beaten as a child physically, so there's child abuse, so there's danger to my body, but if the person who's beating me is also a caregiver or somebody who's supposed to love me, and my core, my identity of who I am as a lovable, safe, trusting person, that's the developmental piece where you're going to be robbed of feeling safe. Right? Versus like if it's like a boogie monster or some really scary person, I'm having a shock trauma, but if I come back home to loving, safe, supportive people, and I have that support ongoing, then there's less of the developmental trauma. Okay? So I just want to help you separate the difference between the two because many of us have developmental traumas and it doesn't have to do with your parents not doing a good enough job or going through something that might feel like a trauma. It's just that in our phases of development, we all have things that were given to us, and we all have things that, for whatever reason, society, changes in family dynamics, things within the family, things within your community, that there were ongoing events, and everybody's been impacted. And the question is more of like, how did your body, how did your mind make sense of it? How did it process it? And what are the areas where it might be impacting you in some kind of way? And you just want to notice that. So it doesn't always mean that you need therapy for some kind of developmental wound or trauma. Sometimes, there's a specific thing that keeps coming up. So every time an authoritative figure says something to you, you shrivel up or you get frozen. Or every time somebody comes to you and confronts you on something that you may have done wrong, because we're all human, you get really angry, right? So these strong reactions and not really being fully who you are sometimes give us a clue in to there might be something there more than, you're a 40-year-old woman, how come you're having such a strong reaction? Instead of saying like, wow, thanks for having this conversation with me, I really want to hear more about it, or right, a more appropriate response to the situation. So I hope this is helpful in helping you understand the difference between a shock trauma and a developmental trauma. If you have any other questions, I love talking about trauma, so feel free to ask.